Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer. 4 graded stakes races at beautiful Belmont Park on Saturday, including the DRFBets Saturday race of the day, the Grade 1 Man of War. You can bet this sensational card with your own DRFBets account. Sign up now, access a $150 bonus, and all you have to do is go to drf.com/join and type in the promo code TV150. Let's take a look at this field of older horses on the turf. They're going 1 3/8 miles on the inner for 3 formulator past performances of the Man of War. Head on over to the Race of the Day event page on drf.com, download them, handicap along with us. We'll take the field in post position order, and Mike will begin with the number 1 Postulation, who came back off of a layoff last time out, came close against a couple of these. I thought it was a solid effort. He's stretching out. He should have a lot of bottom now with that race under his belt. The question is he good enough?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. To me, he's one of, and this is like, this is turned into such a good division, these longer distance turf races the last few years, and this is a really good and well-matched field, and maybe he's just in a little bit too tough here, but to me, he's the most interesting long shot in the race. He's 20-1 on the line. I think it certainly looks like, anyway, he really improved when they stretched him out last year, so this stretch out in distance I think is really going to work for him. I thought he ran fine last time. Not that he was ever going to win, but he was wider than everybody else over a distance this might be short for him. He's going to get a good trip from the rail here. I'm using this horse.
No, I agree with you that he is a fascinating long shot. He has wonderful tactical speed, which should put him in good stead going into the first turn here. 2, his only bad long distance race came in the Canadian International. If you remember, with just a boggy turf course, probably shouldn't even have been run on the turf that day. It was so wet, so we could throw that race out. This is a really interesting long shot for a high percentage underrated trainer. The number 2 is one of the horses to beat, and that's Sadler's Joy for trainer Tommy Albertrani, who had a string of 6 consecutive triple-digit Beyer speed figures snapped last time out in the Grade 2 Pan American Stakes, a race in which there was no pace, and as a one-run closer, he needs pace.
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those races that, the pace never really developed, obviously. High Happy, One Go I'll Go, they're both back in here. They went 1-2 around the track. They actually went 2-1 around the track. And it just felt like the closers, as hard as they tried, couldn't make any impact. I think that race looks a little bit like a step backward for Sadler's Joy in his second off the layoff. I don't even think that's true. I think he actually really ran in that race, and they were just never coming back from him. He was making up ground. It was way too late. He's just a good horse. He shows up and he fires every single time, and he likes this distance. Yes, he's going to need at least a little bit of a pace to run at, but I think he's going to get it, and I think he's going to show up on Saturday.
Coming up out of the optional claiming ranks is the number 3 Scholar Athlete, and all this horse has done is win 3 out of his last 4 starts. He was dangled for 80 last time out. There were no takers. He finished ahead of a couple of these, and we have a Graham Motion formulator fact. Over the past 5 years, with last out winning older horses making their second start off a layoff in a graded stake turf route, Motion's 21% with a positive return on investment. This horse has gotten good. He's got a good amount of tactical speed, but is he really graded stakes class, Grade 1 class?
Yeah, probably not. He has won 3 of his last 4 races, and he does have good tactical speed. I think he'll get a good trip in this race. He's run some okay races going longer in the past, but it's pretty far in the past, and to me, he's just a better horse going shorter.
You and I rarely argue with the Timeform US pace projector, but I think we have our issues with this one. We're going to throw it up right now, and you and I would have thought and bet our bottom dollar that the 9 One Go All Go would have ended up on the lead. Instead, he's sitting in 4th, and I'm just not sure that's right. They have 50-1 shot number 4 Cacho and Da out there on the lead, and while this horse did go wire to wire in winning a Group 1 in Argentina in 2016, he hasn't shown that speed in North America.
No, he hasn't shown it yet, and obviously Belmont, for whatever reason, just gave up on this horse last time, dropped him in for the 40. He won that race actually pretty easily. It's only 3/4 length, but he won that race easily, and I think it might have been a pretty clever claim from Nypark Chatterpart, but he's going to step him up into a Grade 1 here, whether he's on the lead or not. It's hard to make him win this
I
race.
would expect him to be fairly aggressively ridden out there. The 5 is Wake Forest, one of several in here for who else? Chad Brown. Now, Chad has said that this horse will only run if the ground is firm. We're expecting a little bit of wet weather at Belmont Park on Saturday, and Wake Forest doesn't seem to like it. Wake Forest finished just behind Scholar Athlete, just ahead of Postulation in that optional claimer. Who ran the best of the 3 in that race?
I think that's pretty hard to tell. That came down to a 3-horse photo at the wire. I don't think there were any necessarily excuses for any of them. As we already mentioned before, Postulation was sort of widest throughout that race. maybe he gets a little bit of extra credit for that, but I don't know if there are really any excuses for anybody in that race. Wake Forest ran fine. He is what he is. He did win this. He won this race 2 years ago. He didn't win it last
2016,
year. 2016,
but it wasn't the caliber of this
one. It wasn't a field as strong as this one. He was good that day. He got a perfect trip in that race, but he also really accelerated through a pretty tight hole in there. I liked that race from him. I like this distance for him. I think he's an okay horse, Dan. I'm just not a big fan of his. I want others in here.
Chad also trains the number 6 Call Provision. Jose Ortiz has the mount. This horse made his seasonal debut in the Grade 2 Elkhorn when finishing behind One Go All Go. And I think you could make the argument that he ran just as well as the winner because there was no pace on and he was very headstrong in rank. Jose Ortiz gave him a great ride to secure the pocket on the backstretch and into the turn. A seam opened up inside, and hey, it's tough to close going 1.5 miles off a long layoff against a lone speed. He ran quite well. I've just never been his biggest fan.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. One thing I will say about him, and you know, it's worth remembering, he's a New York bred. He started out his career as a 3-year-old like he was actually going to be really good. Chad kind of rushed him. He tried him in some really tough spots in his 2nd and 3rd lifetime starts, and it just didn't really pan out for him. I do think he really improved when they started stretching him out in distance, though, especially last year. I thought he had a really good year. I think this distance is good for him. He's a hard horse to ride. You can go back and basically watch any one of his replays, and he's a very difficult horse to handle. That was the case last time. I thought he ran fine. I think he's extremely usable in this race.
And with more pace in this race, perhaps he'll settle a lot better in the early portion with that race under his belt. Second off the layoff might be a good move for him in here. The 7's High Happy, 5-2 on the morning line for Todd Pletcher. This is a horse that I like on the dirt. I thought he had some trips on turf in Southern California. His first start for Todd in the Gulfstream Park turf off a very long layoff I thought was a good effort considering he was chasing a loose heart-to-heart wide every step. And then in the Pan American, he got the great trip and ride from Luis Saez, sitting second off One Go All Go. But One Go All Go really had nothing for him when High Happy came coming into the stretch. Do you downgrade the effort because there was no closing and the race was run to suit High Happy? Or are you saying this horse just beat 3 of these horses? He's going to get the jump on the main competition again from stalking range, and he's just good.
Yeah, I think that's a valid way to look at him. And listen, that race set up very well. He got a perfect trip last time. It felt like the closers were really up against it in there, but that doesn't really take away, in my opinion anyway, what this horse did. And you're right. One Go All Go was just no match for this horse. So to me, One Go All Go is really tough to take in this spot with High Happy back in here, and he just looks like he's headed the right way. Distance is fine for him. He's going to get a good trip in this race. There are a lot of ways to look at him and just think he's the horse to beat right back, but he's also the favorite on the morning line.
Bigger picture, likes a little bit of give in the ground. He wouldn't mind at all if it rains. He got a really nice trip in winning the Connolly 2 starts back, a race that was supposed to be a confidence builder. And like the Albertrani runner in this race, Sadler's Joy, he just didn't have any pace last time out in the Grade 2 Pan Am. He's a hard hitter that we know on his best day can make a dent in here at 12-1.
Yeah, and he can get a better trip too then. It was surprising to go back and watch that Pan Am because he's a horse who has fine tactical speed, and for him to wind up that far back off the pace in that race when they just didn't go fast, I thought it was a little surprising, and it was also a little surprising that for the first time, it seems like forever, he didn't fire at all in that race. He just didn't run that well. He's good enough to turn it around. He's a good horse. If he's a good price, I always want to consider throwing him in there at a good price because he is good enough to be a factor in this race.
One Go All Go is the 9, winner of the Elkhorn last time out in gate-to-wire fashion, and Chris Landeros just backed down the pace masterfully. It looked like this horse was still in deep water at about the furlong pole, but he gutted it out to his credit. He has now earned triple-digit buyer speed figures in 4 of his last 5 races, but if that Timeform US pace projector is right, he's going to have to do it from off the pace, and I think he's at his best when he gets it his own way, like he did last time out in the Elkhorn.
Yeah, I agree with that. It feels like he needs that if he's going to beat this field, especially when you just go back and look at his races 2 and 3 back. High Happy, Sadler's Joy, they got to him with relative ease, I thought, in those races, and it's not like he had big excuses. He's basically run the same race 5 times in a row, and I think he's going to have to do better than that.
Money Multiplier won a graded stakes race last year. It was the Monmouth, not the strongest field in the world. He was second in the Man o' War in 2016. He has done some good things in his career, but sort of like Call Provision, I've never really been his biggest fan. I'm not willing to hold the Gulfstream Park turf against him. For one reason or another, Chad has been loath to run him at Gulfstream Park over the winter. I just don't think he likes that really hard course there. And I think he just ran him to prep him for that race at Qatar. And he never really ran at all. He ran
true.
in that race overseas. It was not an embarrassing performance at all. He actually ran just fine to be third. This is kind of a quick turn back from a long trip like that.
Right.
On his best day, he can win. He needs a little bit of pace, but he wants firm ground also, I think.
He really does want firm ground. I think, to me, he doesn't act at all when there's caught in the ground. So we'll see how the weather plays out. Is he good enough to win? Yes, he is. He's got several races that will put him right there. I'm actually even less of a fan of his than I am of Call Provision.
Right.
I actually like Call Provision. Yeah. I'm a fan of his, and that's the horse of Chad's 3 that I really want in this race. I'm not going to be surprised if Money Multiplier runs well. I'm just not betting it.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Grade 1 Man of War Stakes. One of several graded stakes races at Belmont on Saturday. You're going with Sadler's Joy. You're hoping different pace situation. He turns the tables on High Happy.
We'll see what happens. He's going to need to work out a trip and hopefully catch at least a little bit of a pace. In a lot of ways, I'm taking nothing away from what High Happy did last time. I just think Sadler's Joy might be the best horse.
You're going 2-1-6-7. I'm hoping High Happy gets a similar trip. I know he'll get the jump on Sadler's Joy going into the stretch. The question is, how fast is he going to have to go early? How much is he going to have to be used on the turn? We know Sadler's Joy is motoring that last 3/16 of a mile. I'll go with High Happy. I've always been a fan of his. 7-10-9-6 for me in the Grade 1 Man of War. It is our DRFBets Saturday race of the day. And again, you can play the card. You can play the Man of War with your new DRFBets account. $150 bonus waiting for you. DRF.com/join. The promo code is TV150. An approximate post time for the Man of War. Race number 11, 6:50 Eastern. Best of luck.